Yes. So, as somebody who's representing a face like Arthan and an organization that uh, concluded this event, I just wanted to understand what was your vision and what was Arthan's vision for a forum like Future of Government.
Um, Great, thank you. So I guess, I mean, we clearly wanted to engage with the government, like to begin with. I mean, we have a huge network of civil society organizations, but we thought all the civil society organizations aspire to understand how the government functions. And a forum like this would create a platform where they can come in and learn from the policymakers, learn from the government officials, also understand the various complexities that exist in the governance framework. And I would say that we have been successful in doing that with like 900 plus people who participated in the forum over the period of 2 days. And hopefully all of them actually managed to demystify the relationship between civil society organizations and the government functionality.
Right, right. Uh, Especially what we're going through when it comes to pandemic, when it comes to I would say tighter government regulations. How do you feel that intra CSO collaboration would change, or how do you think it should evolve, especially between larger civil society organizations and broadly smaller grassroots organizations? How do you think that needs to evolve to ensure that we have a flourishing grassroots network of organizations?
So I think during the pandemic era, especially in the last 6 months, with all the challenges we were facing when the lockdown happened, civil society organizations came in the forefront. Civil society organizations were responsible for like ensuring transportation for migrant workers, to like food delivery, to like a lot of work on the COVID front, like who we call COVID warriors right now. Though having said that, the present climate does not seem to be very conducive, especially when it comes to smaller organizations. And I'm speaking more from a lens and perspective of the recent FCRA amendment and FCRA Act. That act is not positive for smaller organizations because smaller organizations used to receive sub grants from the larger organizations. So with the kind of restrictions that are coming in the governance of the act, it will have a huge implication in smaller organizations going forward. So the government of India needs to understand the role the civil society actors play, and to make that environment conducive. Like we talk about the ease of doing business in case of private companies, I think we need to start talking about ease of running a not-for-profit in this country now. It's high time. And clearly, civil society employs millions and millions of people. I get fascinated when I think about the fact that how when 7 million plus people employed in civil society organizations of the country are not talked about when the pandemic has happened, when the funding crunch has happened, versus if few million, 2 million, 3 million people employed in the IT sector, everyone jumps at it. Anything happens in when the hiring freeze happens at Infosys or Wipro or any other large IT company. So I think we need to start treating this as a sector, give it the due credit it deserves. And that's where I think like the government also needs to understand the role organizations, smaller organizations are playing when it comes to last mile delivery.
Uh, how do you envisage civil society organization of the future, uh, probably the coming decade, in terms of collaborating with the government, in terms of agility, in terms of manpower, in terms of skill sets? How would you define and what's your vision of a CSO of the future?
So I think one thing I really admired it even during our forum, which was understanding the nuts and the bolts of the government functionality. Because I think first level is to educate. A lot of time everyone has an aspiration to work with the government, but you really don't know how the government functions. So I think what Accountability Initiative is doing is very, very critical to educate not-for-profit cadres, specifically at the grassroots level, specifically the frontline workers, empower them and equip them with the tools necessary to understand the government in a very decentralized manner. Use that knowledge to not reinvent the wheel, but to see where you can leverage the infrastructure, leverage the larger ecosystem of the government bodies. So I would say that the not-for-profits would understand how the government functions at the district level, at the state level, the better equipped they are to be able to leverage the massive infrastructure that the government of India provides, right? So a lot of time you would hear expansion when it comes to not-for-profits. It's always about let's go from 10 schools to 100 schools. Let's go from 100 schools to 1,000 schools. Here you have government which can offer you few thousand at one go and looking for like, innovative models. So a lot of time expansion does not necessarily mean that you need to raise more money and add more workforce. Expansion can also mean you need to understand how the government functions so that you can play a role as a partner. And I think through the forum, we witnessed that the government officials who participated, all of them talked about the critical role of the civil society organizations. I think we need to also leverage and voice for that critical role going forward.